So let me take this opportunity to define for you, simply and straightforwardly, what democratic socialism means to me. It means building on what Franklin Delano Roosevelt said when he fought for guaranteed economic rights for all Americans. And it builds on what Martin Luther King Jr. said in 1968 when he stated, and I quote, "This country has socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor," end of quote. Democratic socialism means that we must reform a political system which is corrupt, that we must create an economy that works for all, not just the very wealthy. In my view, it is time we had democratic socialism for working families, not just for Wall Street, billionaires, and large corporations. It means that we should not be providing welfare for corporations. It means that we should not be providing huge tax breaks for the wealthiest people in this country, or trade policies which boost corporate profits while they result in workers losing their jobs. It means that we create a government which works for all of the American people, not just powerful special interests. It means that economic rights must be an essential part of what America stands for. Among many other things, it means that health care should be a right of all people, not a privilege. What a Medicare for All system will bring about is ending the absurdity of the American people paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Now, when I talk about democratic socialism, what that means to me is that in the year 2015, a college degree today is equivalent to what a high school degree was 50 years ago. And what that means is that public education must today allow every person in this country who has the ability, the qualifications, and the desire, the right to go to a public college or university tuition-free. Is this a radical socialistic idea? I don't think so. It exists in many countries all over the world, and you know what? Used to exist in the United States of America. We had great universities like the University of California, the City University of New York, virtually tuition-free. Democratic socialism means that our government does everything it can to create a full employment economy. It makes far more sense to me to put millions of people back to work rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure than to have a real unemployment rate of almost 10%. It is far smarter to invest in jobs and educational opportunities for young people who are unemployed than to lock them up and invest in jails and incarceration. Democratic socialism means that if somebody works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty, that we must raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour over the next several years. It means that we join the rest of the world and pass the very strong paid family and medical leave legislation now sitting in Congress. Democratic socialism, to me, means that we have government policy, strong government policy, which does not allow the greed and profiteering of the fossil fuel industry to destroy our environment and our planet. And it means to me that we have a moral responsibility to combat climate change and leave this planet healthy and habitable for our kids and our grandchildren. Democratic socialism means that in a democratic, civilized society, the wealthiest people and the largest corporations must pay their fair share of taxes. Yes, innovation, entrepreneurship, and business success should be rewarded. But greed for the sake of greed is not something that public policy should support. Democratic socialism, to me, does not just mean that we must create a nation of economic and social justice and environmental sanity. Of course, it does mean that. But it also means that we must create a vibrant democracy based on the principle of one person, one vote. It is extremely sad, and I hope all of you will pay a lot of attention to this issue. It is extremely sad that the United States, one of the oldest, most stable democracies in the world, has one of the lowest voter turnouts of any major country, and that millions of young people and working people have given up on the political process entirely. In the last midterm election, just a year ago, 63% of the American people didn't vote. 80% of young people did not vote. Clearly, despite the efforts of many Republican governors who want to suppress the vote, to make it harder for people of color and old people to participate in the political system, our job together is to make it easier for people to vote, not harder for people to vote. It is not a radical ideal, and I will fight for this as hard as I can as president, to say that everyone in this country who is 18 years of age or older is registered to vote. End of discussion. So the next time that you hear me attacked as a socialist, like tomorrow, remember this. I don't believe government should take over, the grocery store down the street or own the means of production. But I do believe that the middle class and the working families of this country who produce the wealth of this country deserve a decent standard of living and that their incomes should go up, not down. I do believe in private companies that thrive and invest and grow in America, companies that create jobs here rather than companies that are shutting down in America and increasing their profits by exploiting low-wage labor abroad. I believe that most Americans can pay lower taxes if hedge fund managers who make billions manipulating the marketplace finally start paying the taxes that they should. I don't believe in special treatment for the top 1%, but I do believe in equal treatment for African Americans who are right to proclaim the moral principle that Black lives matter. I despise appeals to nativism and prejudice, a lot of which we have been hearing in recent months. And I do proudly believe in immigration reform that gives Hispanics and others a pathway to citizenship and a better life. I have no doubt that there is nothing that together we cannot accomplish. Thank you all very much.
Robert France, a freshman from Brooklyn, who specifically asked me to shout out Brooklyn right there, asks, why do you choose to identify as a socialist when it seems in your platforms you are more in the middle of the spectrum between capitalism and socialism? Well, Axel Kayak, a freshman from Paris, France, in the School of Foreign Service, says, in France, there's no problem with the word socialist. And considering myself a socialist, I feel like the cultural and historical pressure pushes you to call yourself a democratic socialist, although I can't see the difference between the two. So these two questions alone show some of the differences in how people view the word and you. I'm wondering if you would comment to that and maybe discuss that confusion and clarify it just a little bit.
Okay. I think the reason that I have always, throughout my political career, going way back when I was mayor of Burlington, defined myself as a democratic socialist is that in fact is my vision. And my vision is not just making modest changes around the edge. It is transforming American society to make it into a much more vibrant democracy and an economy which works much better for working families. And by the word socialism, what is implicit in that to mean is that it is imperative that if we are serious about change, and a lot of people want change, but at the end of the day, real change does not take place unless we have the courage to take on the very powerful special interests that control our country.